Welcome to Walking Tour of Japan, a podcast dedicated to bringing you a new adventure somewhere in Japan with every episode. Each week we'll travel to a different destination, from ancient temples and stunning gardens to fascinating cities, historic landmarks, and hidden gems tucked away across this incredible country. If you're gearing up for your own trip, head over to northstartravelers.com, where you'll find gear recommendations to help you travel smarter, plus a full list of our other podcast shows covering destinations around the world. If you love discovering new places and planning your next adventure, follow the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're enjoying the show, leaving a positive review goes a long way in helping others find it. Now let's explore Japan. You're standing at the main entrance to one of the most recognizable places in all of Japan. Behind a simple earthen wall and wooden gate lies a complex that has drawn pilgrims, poets, soldiers, and millions of visitors across more than 6 centuries. The stone monument to your right marks this as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, one of 17 historic monuments of ancient Kyoto to hold that designation. But no sign, no monument, and no photograph has ever quite prepared anyone for what waits on the other side of that gate. That moment of first seeing the pavilion from across the water, there's nothing else like it in Japan and very little like it in the world. Look up to your right before you pass through. You'll see a gentle mountain silhouette rising behind the temple complex. That's Mount Hidari Daimonji. Every year on August 16th, that hillside is set ablaze in the shape of a large kanji character as part of a centuries-old ceremony to guide the spirits of ancestors back to the other world. The traces of that fire shape are still visible on the slope if you know what you're looking for. It's the kind of quiet detail this neighborhood is full of. Layers of meaning stacked on top of one another, waiting for someone to notice. Now pay attention to the earthen wall running alongside the main gate. Count the horizontal lines cut into its surface. There are 5. In traditional Japanese temple architecture, the number of lines indicates the rank and prestige of the institution. 3 lines mark an ordinary temple. 5 lines, the maximum, are reserved for the most elite. This temple wears those 5 lines like a crown. Step through and follow the path forward. The ticket in your hand is more than a receipt. It's printed with calligraphy and functions as a small, good luck talisman, an omamori of sorts. Some people keep theirs for years, framed at home. Hold on to it. The story of this place begins in 1397, though the land itself has a longer memory. Before the shogun arrived, this was the private estate of a powerful aristocratic family, the Saionji. The garden, the pond, the sense of cultivated seclusion, those elements were already here. But it was the 3rd shogun of the Ashikaga clan, a man named Yoshimitsu, who transformed it into something extraordinary. Yoshimitsu was one of the most powerful figures in Japanese history. He had unified rival factions, reopened trade with China after decades of isolation, and brought the imperial court under his effective control. He was a patron of no theater, a devotee of Zen Buddhism, and a man who understood that beauty and power were 2 sides of the same coin. When he purchased this estate in 1397 and began building his grand retirement complex, he was making a statement, not just about his wealth, but about the kind of Japan he imagined himself to be at the center of. He built more than a dozen structures here. He held ceremonies that blurred the line between shogun and emperor. He even received the Emperor of China's envoy on these grounds, projecting an image of Japan as a cultured, unified civilization. At the heart of it all was the pavilion, covered in gold leaf, reflected in still water, surrounded by a garden that borrowed its backdrop from the mountains themselves. It was by design the most impressive thing you could see in Japan. When Yoshimitsu died in 1408, he left instructions that his retirement villa be converted into a Zen Buddhist temple. His son honored the wish, and the place became Rokuonji, named after Yoshimitsu's posthumous Buddhist title. The great monk Muso Soseki was named its honorary founder. The pavilion itself was designated a sheridan, a sacred reliquary hall housing the ashes and relics of the Buddha. What had been a monument to one man's ambition became a place of genuine spiritual practice. Now turn the corner on the path, and there it is. Take your time. Let the crowd settle around you. There is a reason people stop talking when they first see it. The pavilion rises 3 stories above the surface of the mirror pond, Kinkaku-ji, and every inch of the upper 2 floors is covered in pure gold leaf. On a clear morning, the reflection shimmers so perfectly in the water below that the building seems to exist twice, once in the air and once beneath the surface. It is almost unreasonably beautiful. The structure you're looking at is only 70 years old. That is not a mistake. The original pavilion, the one Yoshimitsu built, was burned to the ground in 1950 by a 22-year-old novice monk named Hayashi Yoken. He was troubled, consumed by an obsession with the pavilion he could not fully articulate, and one July night he set it ablaze. The fire destroyed everything, including an original carved statue of Yoshimitsu himself. The monk attempted to take his own life on the hillside behind the temple, but survived. He was eventually released from prison due to mental illness and died just a few years later. The incident shook Japan deeply, and it became the basis for one of the country's most celebrated novels, a 1956 work by Yukio Mishima that bears this temple's name. Reconstruction took 5 years. The pavilion was rebuilt in 1955 based on detailed drawings from the Meiji period, and additional gold leaf was applied during a later renovation in the 1980s. Some scholars have wondered whether the original was ever quite this gilded. Whatever the historical truth, what stands before you today is extraordinary. Look at the 3 floors carefully. Each one speaks a different architectural language, and that was entirely intentional. The first floor, the one closest to the water, is built in the Shinden style, the elegant residential architecture favored by Heian period aristocrats, the nobility who ruled Japan over 1,000 years ago. Its open structure and white-painted walls reflect the refined tastes of the imperial court. The second floor shifts registers entirely, built in the Buke style of samurai warrior residences from the Kamakura period. Its sliding wood doors and latticed windows carry a different energy, more practical, more guarded, more martial. The third floor, the topmost, is pure Zen, a Chinese-influenced style of temple architecture that was at the cutting edge of Yoshimitsu's era. Crowned by a golden phoenix that faces south, this floor houses Buddha relics and represents the highest aspiration of the building. Standing here, you're looking at 3 eras of Japanese civilization stacked on top of each other: aristocracy, warrior culture, and Zen spirituality, all wrapped in gold. That was Yoshimitsu's genius. He didn't choose a single style, he contained them all. Now look at the water in front of the pavilion. On a calm morning, the reflection of the pavilion is so precise it looks like a painting. This is the time of day when the light is softest and the tourist numbers are thinnest. Another good reason to arrive when the gates open at 9. The pond covers more than 6,000 square meters and is dotted with small islands and carefully placed rocks. Many of those stones were donated by powerful regional lords during Yoshimitsu's era, each one a kind of tribute, a way of cementing loyalty. The largest island represents the whole of Japan, and from the pavilion's veranda, Yoshimitsu could look out across it and feel, quite literally, like the ruler of everything he surveyed. Follow the path to the left along the edge of the pond. This is a one-way circuit, so there's no going back, which means the first clear view you have from across the water is the one to photograph. Don't rush past it thinking something better is around the corner. This is the classic angle, right here. As you continue around the pond, look for the ancient pine tree trained low and wide across the ground near the water's edge. According to tradition, this tree was originally planted as a bonsai by Yoshimitsu himself more than 600 years ago. It has since been transplanted into the earth and allowed to grow outward rather than upward, shaped over generations into something that looks more like a living sculpture than a tree. That care, that patience, that willingness to think in centuries rather than years, it's very Zen, and it's very Kyoto. The path continues past the pond and rises gently into the garden. Take a moment before you follow the crowd uphill. To your left, partially hidden by trees, is a smaller body of water called Anmintaku, a pond said to have never dried up in recorded history, even during the most severe droughts. In earlier centuries, people came here specifically to pray for rain. A small white snake mound sits at the center of the island within it, and there's a tiny stone pagoda on the island's edge. Most visitors walk past without noticing. It is quietly one of the more interesting corners of the grounds. Moving up the hill now, the path leads toward a tea house called Sekate, a thatched roof structure dating back centuries and positioned on the northern edge of the pond. The name roughly translates to Lingering Sunset Pavilion, and it was designed as the perfect place to watch the afternoon light fade over the water. The tea house is not always open to visitors, but even seen from the path it adds to the texture of the garden, a reminder that this place was always meant to be experienced slowly in different lights across different hours. Higher up on the grounds, near a small waterfall, you'll find a curious stone arrangement. The waterfall is called Ryomen Dragon Gate Falls, and it stands only a few feet high. In front of the falls, a flat stone is placed in the water, shaped like a carp leaping upward against the current. The image comes from a Chinese legend. A carp that can swim up a great waterfall transforms into a dragon. In Japanese culture, this story became a metaphor for perseverance, ambition, and the possibility of transformation. Students still toss coins onto the carp stone today, hoping for a little of that energy before an exam. If you look carefully, you'll almost certainly see a few coins balanced there. Toward the end of the garden path, just before the exit, is the small on-site tea house where you can sit down with a bowl of matcha and a simple sweet. If your feet are tired and your mind is full, and they probably are, this is a good place to pause. The seating overlooks the garden, and the matcha is properly prepared. It's a small thing, but it fits. And near the exit, a shop run by a confectionery called Mamamasa sells wasabi-flavored peanuts. Mildly spicy, packaged beautifully, and priced at just a few dollars. They're genuinely good and make a better souvenir than you might expect. Now let's talk about what to do once you leave. The neighborhood around this temple is one of the richest in all of Kyoto for temple hopping, and the walk between the major sites along the old Kinkaku-ji Road is itself a pleasure. A quiet path through residential streets and forested hillsides that connects 3 separate UNESCO World Heritage Sites. A 15-minute walk southwest from the main gate brings you to Ryoan-ji, and if you've never been, make the time. This is Japan's most famous Zen rock garden, a rectangular space enclosed by weathered earthen walls and filled with raked white gravel in which 15 stones of varying size are arranged in 5 small groups. No one knows exactly when the garden was made, who designed it, or what it's supposed to mean. That mystery is part of its power. From any position on the viewing platform, at least one stone is always hidden from view. The legend says that only someone who has achieved true enlightenment can see all 15 at once. Sit down. Let the crowd settle. It takes a few minutes before the garden starts to work on you. From Ryoan-ji, another 10 minutes on foot takes you to Ninna-ji, a vast temple complex that was, for centuries, headed by members of the imperial family. Its 5-story pagoda is one of Kyoto's great skyline images. In early April, the late-blooming cherry trees here, the Omuro cherry blossoms, flower about a week after the rest of Kyoto's trees have faded. If you're visiting in spring and feeling frustrated that you've just missed the main cherry blossom season, this is where to come. If shrines speak to you more than temples, a short bus ride or a pleasant 20-minute walk to the east brings you to Kitano Tenmangu, a shrine dedicated to Sugawara Michizane, a 9th century scholar and poet who was deified after his death as the god of learning and scholarship. The shrine is surrounded by roughly 2,000 plum trees that bloom in late winter and early spring, filling the grounds with fragrance long before the famous cherry blossoms arrive. On the 25th of every month, a large flea market unfolds across the shrine grounds, hundreds of stalls selling antiques, ceramics, vintage clothing, street food, and handmade goods. If your visit coincides, it's worth the detour. For food after the tour, the most reliable option is Gontaro, a traditional soba and udon restaurant situated roughly halfway between this temple and Ryoan-ji, about a 5-minute walk from the main gate heading southwest. The interior has tatami seating overlooking a quiet Japanese garden, servers dressed in kimono, and an English menu. The broth here is made from carefully selected seaweed and fish flakes using a technique the restaurant has refined over more than 100 years. The noodles are handmade and served both hot and cold depending on the season. It's unpretentious, it's genuine, and it's exactly the kind of meal a day like this calls for. Just outside the temple gate, a small restaurant called Kinkaku-ji Itadaku serves Japanese-style yoshiku, that distinctly Japanese interpretation of Western dishes like pork cutlets, omelet rice, and burger steak, each one served with miso soup and rice. It's warm, casual, and a good choice if you want something filling without much fuss. Open for lunch and dinner, closed Mondays and most Tuesdays. Now, before you leave the grounds entirely, pause here at the end of the path. Turn back if you can for one more look, or simply close your eyes and hold the image you've been carrying since that first moment at the water's edge. This place has been many things across its long life. A shogun's retirement villa, a Zen temple, a relic hall, a symbol of cultural ambition, a casualty of obsession, a resurrection. The building you've been walking around today is technically only 70 years old, but the soul of it, the intention embedded in every gilded surface and every carefully placed stone, reaches back more than 6 centuries. And through all of it, the wars, the fire, the reconstruction, the tens of millions of visitors who've stood exactly where you're standing now, the pavilion keeps reflecting. It keeps shimmering, patient and impermanent all at once. That, perhaps, is the most Zen thing about it. That brings us to the end of today's episode. Before you go, a few quick things. Subscribe so you never miss a destination, leave us a positive review to help others find the show, and share this episode with someone who loves exploring Japan. And if you're hungry for more adventures beyond Japan, visit northstartravelers.com to explore our other podcast shows and browse gear recommendations for wherever your next journey takes you. Your support means the world and keeps these adventures coming. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next walk.